I'm Cindy Babb. I'm with VAS, and we're glad you're here for our strategy over noise and pragmatic leadership for scaling AI with one of our great partners, ALP. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amos Swadchuk with ALP, and he's going to give us an exciting presentation with his team today.
Cindy, thank you so much, and thanks to everyone for joining this morning. Yes, my name is Amos Swadchuk. I see a lot of friendly faces and a couple new ones in the participant list. So we're grateful that you're here today. And with me is Gaynell Lyman, another Virginian you know very, very well. And we're grateful to have you here, Gaynell. And with us is Drs. Jared Cotton and Tom D'Amico, representing Chesapeake Public Schools, as well as Tom recently retired from the director role, which is Ottawa and Ontario's title for superintendent in the Ottawa Catholic School Board. Both leaders have created the conditions for a successful foundation that is now giving way to exciting and impactful developments around the purposeful integration of AI. And that's ultimately what we're looking forward to learning from these leaders today on that subject. So I'm going to introduce, uh, I'm going to hand off to my colleagues so they can introduce themselves and jump into the work. And Jared and Tom, I'm not sure if you all have organized yourselves around who goes first and second. I don't know that detail. So I'll let whoever's going first say hi.
Thanks, Amos. I'll get things going. Tom D'Amico. I'm here. Normally in Ottawa, Canada. I'm in Quebec City today, doing some work with their districts on AI implementation. As Amos mentioned, I'm recently retired after 35 years and finished in the role of superintendent. And really exciting to be doing work right across Canada and also doing work with ALP to support districts with their AI implementation. When I normally do my introductions and I give a bio, the part that people are most interested in is not the fact that I was an educator. It's that prior to being an educator, I was the general manager of Ottawa's pro soccer team. And for the last 29 years, I've been an off-ice official for the NHL. So I'm at the hockey rink quite a bit when I'm not traveling. So that's an area of interest. And maybe I'll just get going, Jared, and then we'll turn it over to you for your introduction. So I'm hoping everyone is seeing the slides right now. And thank you very much for the invitation. I want to start by sharing some mistakes that we're seeing right across Canada when it comes to AI implementation in K-12. And really, when you take a strategic change management approach, then you'll realize why these are mistakes. So the first is districts that are seeing AI as an IT initiative and a focus on tools. And when they do that, they're missing all of the leadership change management, and it just is not working. The second is a lack of clarity as to what is allowed and what is not allowed. In so many districts right now across Canada, students don't know what they're allowed to use. Teachers don't not sure what they're allowed to use. The problem with that is a feeling of guilt. So imagine being an educator who wants to help a student learn and you're feeling guilty about using a tool that would do that, or a student that wants to learn and is feeling guilty that or fearful that they may be caught for what's being accused as cheating. The last area of errors that we're seeing across Canada is when people are implementing AI, really focusing on automation and forgetting about good pedagogy. And that's a huge error. And the last one is even though AI has been around since about 1956, in the education field, it's really been since 2022 that it's been an area of interest in K-12. People are forgetting that we need to now explicitly teach the skills and competencies for today's learners. And 5 years ago, those skills were different than what we need today. So I'm going to get going with just a quick overview, and this is a very busy slide, and you can see the progression from 1956 and the first chatbot in 66, all the way down to ChatGPT coming out in November 2022, and what we're seeing with generative AI from 2023 and now up to 2026. On the right side, when you receive the deck, there are links to each of those areas. So much like your states are putting out guidance, some of our provinces are putting out guidance. Some are better than others. British Columbia has probably done the best job in terms of their district level working with their superintendents. Alberta, it's been from their school association. Ontario, we've received nothing from our Ministry of Education in terms of pedagogical approach. It's all been about cybersecurity, which is very unfortunate. Quebec has focused largely on post-secondary. New Brunswick has a smaller province in Canada, has done a great job because their ministry staff, their deputy minister are very engaged in how they can use AI for reform. And Newfoundland and Labrador, I'm going to talk about them a little bit. They've made some mistakes, so I'm going to share one of their key mistakes. They came out with this vision for the future of education. They started with an interim document in December 2024. Then they came out with their executive summary last August. And then you can see by the image on the screen, it was a huge document, really looking at how do you reform the entire education system, all the curriculum using AI. They partnered with local university. The problem was 2 days after they released their plan. Whoops, I think I just stopped my presentation. Give me 1 second. 2 days after they released their plan, the CBC put out an article, the news, saying it was filled with hallucinations. So they had not done their work, and they had fake citations that were going out. So that really impacted a great documents work. You can see on this slide that they are looking at pathways, short-term, long-term, medium. What's the impact for curriculum? What's the impact for teachers? So it's a good document, but because of the reputational damage, no one is using it right now across Canada. Strongly believe that AI is not going to transform education, but leaders will. So all of you that have taken the time today to be on this call, you're demonstrating that in your districts. You're doing this hard work. You're being there learning alongside your other leaders and educators. And we need a human-centered approach to innovation. What we've seen is the focus on culture and then tools will have a huge impact in districts. And you know that it's those relationships within each district or division, plus the culture, that's going to bring you change. And that's why you can't just take what might work in one district in Virginia and drop it into another. Your cultures are different, and you've got to take that and adapt it. Look at those nuances of leadership to what works. Some will have more resistance from unions. Some will have acceptance from unions, early adopters, lots of resistors. So you've got to look at that from a nuanced leadership perspective. We all know that leadership is that capacity to translate that your vision or a vision into reality. But when it comes to AI, I think this quote is better suited. A leader takes people where they want to go. A great leader takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but ought to be. And I see that for the current state of AI in education. A lot of people are just overwhelmed with everything happening in their districts and their schools. They don't feel they can take something else on, so they don't really want to go in that direction. But they do know they really should be there for the benefit of their students and their staff. So quick overview of our story. So I was the superintendent for the Ottawa Catholic School Board, and in Ontario, even though it's a Catholic board, it's publicly funded. So we have students of multiple faiths in our school district. Many students choose to come to the Catholic schools for different reasons, but it's not a private school. We're not linked to the diocese. We're publicly funded. 53,000 students, 89 schools, and French immersion in all of our schools. When I reflected on our successful implementation of AI, it was these 7 steps. I'm going to go through these very quickly in this 30 minutes that I have to look at how we handled each of those steps to make it a successful implementation. The first was coming up with a compelling why. So the work of Simon Sinek, why do we want AI in our district? We were a high-performing board, performing higher than the province in all the standardized test areas. People were sending their kids to our school. We're building schools, 5% growth every year for the last 3 years. So why would we want to disrupt that? Our why, when we looked as a senior team, came down to 2 reasons. The first was staff well-being. We could see our staff were really burdened with all the things happening in education. Sick leave rates were going up. For the first time, we were seeing principals going on long-term disability, which we'd never had in our district. So there was just an overwhelming sense of there's too much going on. So we felt and we articulated that if there's any tool out there that we could purchase, we could support and train that will help with well-being to decrease the workload to our staff, we owed it to them to do that. And of course, that was well received by our school community when we're sharing with them, this is why we want to do this. It's for you, it's to help you. And the second was equity of access for our students. We saw during COVID the negative impact, kids who had devices, those that didn't, kids who could learn at home, those that couldn't. We didn't want to replicate that. We knew there would be kids that would go home and their parents could afford $20 a month for the paid version of ChatGPT, and others would have nothing. And we felt it was extremely important as a district. We found tools that all students could use to make sure that digital divide did not increase. These are the 3 phases that we followed. So phase 1 was when we partnered with ALP, and ALP was sharing many American districts with us to look at, here's what's happening in the United States. And that was our year of learning. So we did pilot projects, we built capacity, we created our guiding principles. Last year was phase 2, and that was our year of empowerment. We focused on AI literacy, AI certification for staff, critical thinking. So we didn't say it was the year of AI. We said our focus for every school in our district was critical thinking in the age of AI. So we positioned it as critical thinking, not as AI. And then this current year, continue on transformation, looking at how we can scale capacity. And it's year 2 of really trying to change our critical thinking around assessment and evaluation. So that's the 3-year journey that we've been on. When I spoke to our district, my message to all of our staff, so about 3,500 teachers and another 1,500 staff, was I want you to try AI once. 184 teaching days, try it once to save yourself time. And then try it once to personalize instruction. That got away of all the pressure from unions saying you can't tell teachers what they have to do. We're saying do it once, it's going to help them. The end of that first year of implementation, that try it once turned into 3,300 staff that had used AI over 217,000 times to give feedback to students, to create curriculum, inspect writing, change writing levels. We used a tool called BRIS. The tools are not important, but that's the one we ended up selecting. We used School AI to create over 10,000 chatbots in our district, and Wayground, which was quizzes, to look at how can we address accessibility features in assessment practices. Our second step was making sure that this was not an IT initiative. It was all about our entire leadership team. We had to be transparent and we had to communicate that. So all members of our senior cabinet or senior team were very involved in the implementation. We had created an interdepartmental team of 35 staff across the district, different roles and positions, and they're the ones that met to create guiding principles, to create our deliverables for the end of year 1 and look at what should we be doing for year 2. And then I met with the coordinator of learning technology and the superintendent of learning technology for a half hour every 2 weeks. And that was to check in, to keep people focused, to look at how is AI impacting our district and how is it supporting all of our existing initiatives. We came up with a month-by-month communication plan. I've given you a link to what our comms team did, an initial video that expressed our why that went to every parent, every student, including in multiple languages based on the language of our key parents in our system. We created a parent website, and then we used our social media campaign to show what we were doing and why over that first year and a half. In our deliverables for year 1, we created a staff AI toolkit, and we let everyone know, here's the resources you need. We're launching next September. So in our year of learning, we built these resources, lots of support for staff. We created a parent website for 2 reasons. The first was to help parents understand why we were embracing AI. And the second was to decrease the workload on principals and vice principals who would have been inundated with parents saying, why are you doing this? We're fearful about the environment. We're here, it's going to offload cognitive thinking. We put all of those answers on a parent website, including all the FAQs from parents during our parent focus groups that year. We kept our trustees informed, so our board of governors, by letting them know what we were working on, explaining what AI was. We shared with them, and we should have involved them more in retrospect, creating the guiding principles. We committed to PD and resources for the staff. And then we started bringing presentations to them that either spoke about AI or used AI. So we shared with them a podcast when that feature came out early on in the process. We talked to them about critical thinking in the age of AI as a focus across all of their schools. We then moved to step 3, which was building capacity and networking. That was the partnering with ALP. We worked with Dr. Michael Fullen. We worked with Google and more partners because we did not have the expertise. We let everyone know that we were all on the same journey. We were learning together, and it involved everyone: finance, planning facilities, continuing ed, HR, our executive team, everyone in the district. We did training sessions for our caretakers, showing them how they could use the voice feature in AI when they're trying to repair something, take pictures, so they felt engaged and felt they were part of the process. Big focus on professional development. We were like many districts, we do not have the luxury of supply teachers. There's just a huge shortage. We did not have money for release time. So all of the PD had to be a variety of entry points. Saturday AI Summit, where we pay for breakfast and lunch and give prizes, but there is no release time. AI PD Day, if we happen to have a PD Day. Lots of student feedback, going into classrooms, hearing from them. We own 10 minutes of the 1 hour staff meeting that each school has once a month. So that during that 10 minutes, we shared resources, we shared videos in that showing what was happening across the district. Lunch and learns and breakfast and learns, where we would pay for breakfast or lunch for the entire staff, and we would go in and have 30 to 40 minutes to present. Student pilots, lots of parent outreach. We brought our co-presidents in together to share with us what their fears were, what their aspirations were, and then we shared that with the school principals. We took part, we bought subscriptions to the TCEA conference for any staff that wanted to go learn about AI. A very small number went to in-person conferences. Student presentations. So we would have our central staff present to 1,000 to 2,000 kids virtually. So all the grade 11 kids could sign up. The teachers didn't have to do anything, but they participated, they listened, and they learned as well how to use some of these tools. We ran our certification program for everyone. It could be office administrators, teachers, early childhood educators, anyone that was interested in getting certified. We created an after-school network for elementary teachers to share their concerns, to look at how they were using it. My favorite network was our English teachers, our department heads from 16 high schools. Our biggest resistors to AI were high school English teachers. So we brought them together and said, let's talk about it. And they ended up creating a brilliant document that they shared with English teachers saying, here's how you can use AI. Here's some tools that will help kids read, help kids write. Here's how you do citation. And here's what we're working towards dealing with the wicked problem of assessment and evaluation. We made sure we did PD sessions for our non-teaching staff. We brought Google in to show them how they could use Sheets, how they could use Docs and some of the feature sets. And we ran sessions for parents. Our fourth step to change was coherence. So we had to make sure the whole district knew we were not leaving any of our existing priorities. We were using AI within all of those priorities. And that was really important, that they didn't see AI as a new initiative. They saw it as an infrastructure to support what they were already working on. Here's a typical reaction in a staff meeting when they hear this a new district initiative. So we knew we had to avoid that. We didn't want people saying, oh no, I'm going to wait till this is gone. We came out with guiding principles, which now you can Google and get guiding principles right away, or use AI to get your principles. But bringing people together was so important, and ALP led that work for us. We created these 5 guiding principles, which were personalized to our district. And what was really important was the educator said, we can't use these with kids. So they went out and they redid them in student-friendly language for K to 6 and student-friendly language in 7 to 12. We go through these in the first 2 days of school, every single class on the board every year. Those guiding principles were like the release valve to say to staff, you have permission to use AI. So all those staff that were feeling guilty, am I cheating? Am I allowed to use it? They knew they were allowed to use it, but there were guardrails provided by the board because of these guiding principles. Our 5th commitment was to professional learning and resources. So there had to be some budget, even though budgets are always tight in education. Lots of pilot projects involving different groups. We started reading and learning. We looked at what was current. And clearly this is an example of a white paper saying our educations have to teach the skills that this generation needs. So we learned and we started to share across the district. We know that AI tools can be expensive. We did not do any of our scale with any new FTE or any new budget from our ministry. So there were no new funds coming in and there were no new staff coming in. What we did was we started by reviewing all of our digital tools, and we looked at the ones that we could really use AI to replace. That allowed us to deprecate about $100,000 worth of budget. We then found collectively, because our entire team was part of the process, so our finance superintendent was very eager when she saw the benefits to the board, to the staff, to the students, to also be creative. So we freed up another $100,000 to pay for some licensing. And we planned another $100,000 for future investment once we find an AI tutoring tool that meets our needs. We didn't find it at the time, so we didn't spend that fund. Lots of free tools, but we went through the risks of the free tools. Staff can use free tools, but they have to address privacy, security, and we know there's a cost, and the cost is student privacy and data when you use a tool that you're not paying for. Sixth area of a reflection was time to scale. The reality is there's so many things that happen in a district over the year, whether it's a bus accident or it's a fire or it's a death of a staff member, people going on sick leave. So this is not a one-year initiative. We initially said as a team, we're looking at 3 to 5 years to properly implement and scale AI within our existing initiatives. We put very clear messaging to here's what has to happen. So what are the non-negotiables? One non-negotiable was you cannot say you're never going to use AI in my class. And that was because of the skills kids need to leave. We did as much central messaging as we could, as much of the resources we could build. We built our own, it's called, because of Catholic Board, Samaritans on the Digital Road, which is our digital literacy program. We rewrote it with AI literacy in mind, and we linked it to the curriculum to grades 1 to 9 English. So every year, every student gets 5 lessons on AI literacy linked to English curriculum, and it's age appropriate. Grades 10 to 12, we do the same thing in our board in religion. The first 2 days of school, every single teacher has to come up with a class agreement on the use of AI, and we start in kindergarten. So we have that discussion about what is AI, robots, etc. And then we use chatbots for them to come up with their class agreement. So the first 2 days, every class, every teacher is talking about AI. And then after that, we want every educator to look at that because it impacts their assessment. Big focus on deepfakes, and we had to rewrite some of our policies and procedures to make sure that deepfakes were defined. So that's why we wanted everyone to teach AI literacy. And as we did this, we documented everything with 1 to 2 minute video clips. So people were using this. We have a huge database of about 200 examples. Our first ones that came out were a list of about 24. We linked it to research. We put it on our parent website. So if we said the research says it's going to help ELL learners, we could now link a 1 to 2 minute video of one of our staff saying, here's how it impacted my district, or sorry, my school, my learners, and here's how I'm using it. And it wasn't just teachers, it was people of all different roles. Now we have too many of these and we're sorting through them, looking at how can we share these. AI and assessment remains a wicked problem. No simple answers. So it was important that our staff knew that. We don't have all the answers, but we're going to commit to working through it together. So we rewrote our planning for academic integrity document with an AI view and lens. We gave our staff ideas of how do you respond to academic dishonesty. We didn't want it to be a whack-a-mole battle trying to catch kids cheating. It was having those discussions with them, looking at triangulation of data. We put in new definitions, and we created a chatbot. So if you think a kid was used or a student used AI inappropriately, here's the steps to follow, which don't start with discipline. They start with discussion and looking at why it's not appropriate to offload your cognitive thinking. So that was our concern. We'd have skill erosion. We knew the impact that they would lose skill development, and different ways we're trying to mitigate that now throughout the district. This is year 2 of working with different areas. Remember to have fun with AI. That was a message we also gave to all of our leaders and our principals. We wanted them to share stories of how they were using AI. It didn't have to be at school, it could be at home. We can do great things. I can take Amos and go into ChatGPT and in under 30 seconds have a wonderful sketch of Amos that I could never do in the past. So augmentation, how I can do things now that I couldn't do without AI. Dr. Scott, there you are. I can put you in and turn you into a bobblehead. And Gaynell, if I want to create a plushie of you and get some sales at lunch hour, there it is. If I want to make myself into a toy, and when we do these, we share the prompt with our staff. So they will go home, they'll take the prompt, they'll upload their images or their friends. They start playing with the tools, and that's really helped with the adoption. I finish by saying AI gives you answers, but educators give you hope. That's why we'll never replace educators with AI in our district. We want hope and relationship with all of our students. I know you'll receive a copy of the slide deck afterwards. I've given a link there to the slides as well as a QR code. But I will stop sharing so there's time for Jared to get going, and I think we'll take questions at the very end.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Even though I've been working with this for a while, I learned a lot from your overview. So I'm sure others have as well. I'm glad you didn't make a stuffed animal of me. So, but anyway, I'm happy to be here. I'm Jared Cotton, Superintendent of Chesapeake Public Schools. This is my 8th year as superintendent. It's my hometown. I grew up in Chesapeake. I went to school here. left and did other things. I was a superintendent in Henry County at one point. So I was in the rural southwestern part of Virginia. And then, of course, I came back home to Chesapeake. And our journey really mirrors a lot of things that I heard Tom talking about today. And of course, I'll share our journey in a very large school district here in Virginia. But before I dive into that, you all have been listening for a little while here this morning. So we're going to do something called a waterfall activity if I don't mess it up. But what we want to do is think about what you've heard already from Tom, thinking about AI, how it's going to evolve and impact a classroom, a teacher, or a student. And just pick any one of those three that you're thinking about and start putting something in the chat, if you will, but don't click send yet. Don't enter it yet because we want to do it all at the same time. But think about how a classroom, if we realize the impact of AI, how a classroom could look different, or how a teacher's role could look different, or a student's role. And let's get some ideas. Tom, if you can kind of help me monitor the chat, that would be great. But in 3 seconds, we're going to go ahead and click send. 1, 2, 3. Go ahead and click send, and let's get some ideas flowing here this morning. Tom, are you seeing them coming in? I see some chats coming.
There's a couple coming in.
All right, here we
I
go.
think more reflection going on right now.
Teacher's workload easier. Okay, great. You heard Tom talk about that. I'm going to talk about that as well. More time for learners. One of the things that we thought about was how would this look different for our students? Great. I see Nicole. I know Nicole. Help the workload with teachers, in particular with differentiation, new leadership opportunities for administrators and educators coming in. All right, keep the ideas flowing. As we get started here with the journey here in Chesapeake, we started with our why as well, just like you heard from Tom. Our strategic plan, our Empower to 2030, we just updated that plan. We had Empower 2025. The new version is Empower 2030. And you'll see that obviously, as you heard Tom say, we didn't want AI to be a whole new initiative. We wanted to find ways that it could incorporate with what we were already doing. And of course, empowering our learners really fit nicely because for years, we've been focusing on critical thinking, creative thinking for our students. We've been looking at growth for our students, differentiation in particular. And the reality is it's really hard to differentiate for students. We all know that it's important to do, but it's very difficult to find the time to make that happen. We also knew we needed to support our people with all of their workload and all the things that they have to do and how can we optimize our operations. We also knew that we needed to continue to connect with our community, and all of these aligned nicely to our strategic plan. So we don't have 7 steps, but we pared ours down to 4, just so that you can see how we approached AI here in Chesapeake. I will tell you that ALP was such a great partner for us as we got started. I will admit that just so you know, I have a technology background, so I appreciate what Tom said about AI should not be a technology initiative. I did have, in my former life, I was a technology specialist and I did work in the field of IT, mostly instructional technology. So I went to the first session with ALP by myself. Well, not by myself. I had my technology chief who came with me, and I learned very quickly I didn't have the right people at the table because we were looking at it as more of a technology focus. I needed my instructional people there. I needed policy people there. I needed people from all areas of the school division to be involved in this process. So we learned that very quickly. But our 4 stages were setting the stage, testing and piloting, surveying and iterating, and of course, scaling for impact. So I'll go through these very briefly. We have those listed here. Obviously, like many of you, we had to come up with guiding principles to move us forward. And as Tom said, we'll share this presentation with you as well as great resources that we're happy to share as well. We also looked at our acceptable use policies. We decided to go that route versus changing school board policy. And we'll talk to you about why we kind of took that approach. We also worked on teacher guides and for student use and AI integrity, and we continue to be involved in auditing as we move forward. Of course, this is just a snapshot that we put together with guiding principles that we provided for our staff. And again, we're happy to share these with you. But again, similar to what all of you have been doing, I did like what Tom discussed about creating user-friendly language. That would be something that we certainly want to work on for all levels, so that many times that when you write these things for adults, you certainly have to translate those so students understand as well. We decided not to do a school board policy or regulation. We decided to approach it through our acceptable use policy. And there are pros and cons, to both. And of course, the reason that we liked using our acceptable use policy, like many of you, your students sign that every year, and you can quickly update it and change it based on new technology or new initiatives that come forward. And of course, we felt like that was the best way to go, and also to make sure we can adapt as quickly as we can. We didn't move forward with the policy because we knew, if you're like us, policy has to go to the board for 2 readings, and it takes time to change, and of course it takes lots of discussion, and we felt that wasn't the way to go. I know some school divisions do change school board policy. That's not the route that we took, and just wanted to share that we decided to move in that direction. We did also, like Tom said, we provided guides for our students and our teachers. Obviously, we talked about the importance of citing AI. We talked about the importance of the different tiers of using AI. Of course, designating whether or not assignment should have no AI used, or if AI should be used as a coach or a collaborator. You see it on the graphic there on the left. We did agree to a default that AI tools are generally permitted for assignments unless the teacher explicitly states otherwise, meaning that the teacher says no AI could be used. So that was the area that we really had to spend time talking about. And of course, if AI is used, it must be properly cited. And back to those high school English teachers, those high school teachers in general, that was an important discussion that we had on the onset. And of course, we focus on integrity, making sure that we define original work and provide clear protocols there. We do have guidelines that we're happy to share if you would like to see kind of how we've approached this here in Chesapeake. Audit and evaluation, obviously what we have been doing is we've been working on providing with teachers with resources on whether or not to use AI and what tool to use. Stop and reflect, of course, before using those tools. And Tom alluded to it, but I have to tell you, I didn't realize this initially, that if it's free, there is a cost. Sometimes we think free is wonderful, but you have to worry about personal identifiable information that you put into those different tools. So one of the things that we've had to really work on, which we'll talk about briefly, is working on relationships with vendors to make sure that our student and staff information is private. What my technology director likes to say all the time, if it's free, then you're the cost because it's using your personal information and using your personal identifiable information. So that's important. We also want to make sure that it supports the instruction and the curriculum. And we've worked hard on vendor compliance to make sure that we get compliance letters from our technology vendors, because one of the things that we've learned over the past couple of years is a lot of our technology tools that we're already using start incorporating AI without telling us that that's what they're going to do. They just start adding that feature without providing the proper safety and security guidelines. And thank you, Cindy, for turning
Jared,
that off so that we
could I just I just want to call out some of my recent travels have been through rural corners of North America. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Alberta. The last week, I was in Saskatchewan. This week, I'm doing lots of work behind the scenes to create opportunities for rural school districts and boards that don't have the specialization or resources. And I'm just seeing a lot of innovation coming from smaller school boards that may not feel like they can lead as powerfully as they do. And I think that's just a really important call out to our colleagues who are looking at large school districts and boards like Chesapeake, Ottawa, and others. Um, First of all, your philosophy towards sharing makes the work easier and lighter. And secondly, the asset that rural and smaller school divisions have is that they can scale faster, they can scale with greater fidelity, and I just wanted to celebrate the achievements of rural communities in their capacity building. We can learn a lot from them.
And I appreciate you saying that, Amos, because I was in Henry County as superintendent, about 7,000 students. So you're exactly right, a much smaller school district, but one of the most innovative because we were able to pivot and move quickly to scale. The challenge is you're the one doing the scaling because you don't have the staff that a larger school district has. But again, if you empower your teachers and staff to be involved in that, then you'd be surprised at how quickly you can take it to scale. So our path to scale, to hit on that, is we looked at testing and piloting, surveying and iterating, and of course scaling for impact. What we did with testing, the way we approached it in Chesapeake, is we put together a group of educators, and again, we didn't force them to be a part of this. We took volunteers. I love the title of the group we put together. We put together a disruptive technology group where their whole role was to look at innovative, disruptive technologies that will really transform the way that we deliver instruction to our learners each and every day. And of course, what we did was we started piloting. Of course, I'll just for your information, if you want to learn more, we piloted Conmigo, Magic School, AI, and then School AI were the ones that we piloted with our group of disruptors. And of course, we developed a division evaluation rubric to help screen all of our AI tools for transparency, privacy, and instructional impact. And again, we'll be happy to share those with you as well. The other thing that I would say that we leveraged, that it's a Virginia thing, of course, we leveraged the funding for the all-in tutoring funding. We were able to use those funds to pilot as well as scale, because we were focusing on reading and mathematics. And of course, the challenge with that is, to Tom's point earlier, we have to budget for that moving forward. So as I'm presenting my budget next week, we have had to find a way to fund that moving forward. But the good news was we were able to pilot several different tools, and then we can identify how we're going to move forward. But this is what I was most excited about when we surveyed our teachers who were implementing these tools in the classroom. Over 80% said that they would continue to use the tools, which is quite a percentage. But the other thing that we were excited about was that the teachers felt that obviously they wanted to learn more about how it aligns to the curriculum. But the biggest win for us was differentiation. You know, what we hear all the time from teachers is how important it is to differentiate and put students in small groups and have different groups of students focus on different skill areas. They were able to leverage AI tools to help them quickly do that. And we actually had teachers who told us for the first time they're able to actually make it happen, because they just, it was just impossible to do it with the time constraints and what's involved in doing that. I mean, it's hard enough to write a really good lesson, but to write 3 or 4 to address all the different needs in your classroom is certainly challenging. But of course, we were excited that Magic School in particular, teachers reported saving them 6 to 10 hours per week. So back to the why and back to the getting teachers excited about using AI, this has really helped us kind of move this forward. So as we're scaling, similar to what you heard from Tom, we obviously have coaches that are in place. We have coaches within our schools. We have our technology integration coaches, which we call them TICs affectionately. And what's important is we have really changed the dynamic of our technology integration coaches. We actually put coaches in their name. because what was happening was they were spending so much of their time on break fix, trying to fix technology. That was never the intention for them or their role. We want them heavily linked into the curriculum, using technology and AI tied to the curriculum so that it's not a separate initiative. And we provide just-in-time teaching during the school day so that teachers get the support they need when they need it. We did take an approach with our school leaders where one of the things we did right from the beginning is I just had my school leaders and my cabinet in particular just play with AI, try different tools, try different things just to see how it can help them with their day-to-day work. Of course, we also I have a superintendent planning council where I meet throughout the year, and we presented to a group of business leaders and community members so that they knew the positives of AI, the challenges of AI, so that we were very clear moving forward. And then, of course, when we talk about the AI strategy, always and going to scale, always be thinking about who needs to be involved in that process and looking at the time. I'll move through that so that we can get to questions at the end. We did want to make sure that all professional development was job embedded. We have our PLCs and our department meetings that we've incorporated this in. We have trained the trainer model, which is similar to what you heard Tom talking about through our coaches. We have a lot of coaches in Chesapeake. We had to get all of our coaches on the same page. We have coaches from professional development. We have technology coaches. We have Title I coaches, and we brought them all together to make sure that we're all using the same coaching model. Again, AI happens to be the area that we're developing, but it could be any number of things. And as I said earlier, self-paced and extended trainings for our staff are certainly in play. Just some lessons that we've learned and some key takeaways. Success is driven by clear guiding principles and a focus on solving specific instructional challenges. When you go to teachers to talk about AI, you can't go to them and say, like that picture you had up there, Tom. Guess what we're going to do? We're going to start doing AI. And of course, if you're like me, when you first heard about AI, you were envisioning the Terminator and all those scary things that were going to happen. And you want to use AI for good and not evil. So obviously, we had to spend some time, and we did the same thing Tom did. We approached it with, you can save a lot of time as a teacher, but also you can increase student critical thinking, problem solving, creative thinking. Look at all the great things you can do in your classroom. And that's really how we approached it. And of course, ongoing challenges we have as we continue to address student norms, and ensure that we have equity across all of our buildings, because some buildings are further along than others. And that's something we continue to work on. And of course, building on success, we have to deepen those vendor partnerships and use pilot data to refine our district-wide sustainability plan. One of the things my technology people keep telling me is make sure you have those vendor agreements so that student privacy is protected. And you're going to find that some of your parents are very concerned about that as well, as they should be. And of course, the biggest thing I'll leave you with is AI won't transform education on its own. Leaders will, and teachers will, by adopting a human-centered approach to innovation. AI is not going to replace teaching, it's going to enhance it. And that's really what we want to see happening across our schools. So I will leave it there with our journey, and our presentation, and all of our resources will be made available to you. Tom, are you ready to answer some questions? I don't know how we're doing on time. I think we got 10 minutes. So we have 10 minutes left to answer questions. So we're happy to do that. And Amos, I don't know if you or Gaynell would like to open it up for questions or not.
Indeed. Yes. Let's make this as fertile as possible. Any questions, reactions, skepticisms, anything that Doctors Cotton and D'Amico can help you with. While we're waiting, and if anyone wanted to share, I did share while Tom and Jared were we're presenting. I wrote an article on LinkedIn and put that link in chat. If we want to promote through our own networks this morning's webinar, I will also share resources in that post as well. So if we want folks who didn't have the benefit or the privilege of being here this morning to access that through your networks, we appreciate that forward. I think it's also a great opportunity to remind everyone that there is something very exciting happening across Virginia in partnership with VAS and Virtual Virginia. ALP is working on 3 virtual courses for 87,000 plus Virginia educators that are focused on augmenting AI literacy with high quality, dynamic professional learning experiences that will be made available later this spring through the Virtual Virginia Canvas platform. There are plenty of opportunities to share your voice in terms of what you think that virtual course content should have. If you want to learn more and contribute, there are plenty of opportunities and instructions on how to do so at the VAS website. And we'll put that link in chat as well, so that you can access that easily and forward it or engage in it any way you like. So there was the promotional activity. Any questions or responses for Tom and Jared?
I know some of these people in this group, and they are not quiet folks. So they're quiet today. But it'd be great if any questions that you have, or maybe we did such a good job. You don't have any
I
questions, but
think
I'm
it's
sure
the
that's
latter. But let's not let them off the hook.
yeah.
You never know.
And I noticed a lot of the names were in our cohort of learning year 1. So they're probably just taking it all in of everything that y'all have accomplished and confirming what they've done. So
Well, I appreciate the fact that I thought we were doing such a great job, and listening to Tom, I made some notes. I got some more work to do. So I'm hoping, and as I saw folks on here, I've seen many of them at training, so they've been through this journey. So hopefully they picked up some good tips as well.
Thank you for that, Jared. I would call out, I was in Saskatchewan with Tom last week, and I had the benefit of his full length keynote. And something that Tom shares in that deck that I think folks should pay particular attention to are the use cases, Tom, and the videos that showcase how Ottawa Catholic School Board staff, and not just teachers, I mean any representative in the organization, the division or the board was very proactive in capturing 2-3 minute videos of these folks talking about AI in their roles. And I think a powerful driver for scalability in a school system is when people see their own taking the platform and sharing their own voices. So I think that's a really, really powerful takeaway that we just didn't have time to dig into during this 1-hour webinar.
Yeah, and I do think that's a good thing to capture some of that. I know in our leadership meetings, we have leaders who highlight things. I just had a director yesterday who's meeting with principals, and she dropped in her academic reset mid-year based on student data, all of her tips. She dropped it in a Notebook LM and created a narrated presentation that she's showing to administrators. And so again, we have that happen as a part of our PLCs and our meetings, but I did like that idea of capturing that on video, because in that way we can share it with others.
Amos, I did put the link to our VAS website, the AI Part 2 Into the Classroom webpage up there in the chat. And so if you guys want to take a look at that, we do have one link to the earlier information session, and we have one more coming up on February 9th. And then the survey, if you want to share some input, that's open for another day. So go ahead and look at that. And if there's not any other questions or anything else, we can go ahead and close out for the day. I appreciate everybody taking the time to join us today, and thank you very much.
Thank you.